Bones and Bobbins podcast is now on Patreon.
Yay!
Would you like access to bonus episodes, digital extras, exclusive merch, and more? Join us in the Curiosity Shop at patreon.com/Bones and Bobbins.
Your generous support helps make the show happen and will also earn you our very eternal gratitude and entry into our private Patreon-only Facebook group where all of the delightful people are.
They really are. It's my favorite little corner of Facebook.
Yes,
and
me
that
too.
says a lot, because I belong to, like, cute, fuzzy animal groups.
Fact. In a dusty old shop on a forgotten old street, you'll find two witches with books 3 boxes deep. Next to rusty old needles and faded red thread, you'll come in for yarn, but leave with pigments instead. Whether poisons or patterns, we're always discreet, where creepy and crafty and morbidity meet. Welcome to the Bones and Bobbins podcast. Hello, morbid makers. We are your slightly creepy,
Mildly disconcerting,
somewhat sinister,
delightfully discomposed,
opaquely odd,
merrily morbid,
marvelously misanthropic hosts.
And this is Bones and Bobbins, Season 3, Episode 2, Roses Are Red, Your Lips Are Blue.
I'm Haley from Red Handled Scissors and the Very Serious Crafts podcast, and I go by she and her.
And I'm Natali from Uber Dark Designs, an official true crime creative, and my pronouns are she and her.
Yay!
Yay!
So,
how you doing?
It's, I was gonna say it's been a week, but my computers both broke immediately before the last recording, right?
Yep. And then mine hiccuped, but was hanging in there. And then it's been a Mercury is what it's been.
Yeah, it was in the microwave.
Yeah.
It just, there was nothing to be done. There continues to be nothing to be done. But
we
are resilient and kind of good at piecing things together. So, just not in time for... Oh, hey, there's my husband.
Woohoo!
Yep. Kool-Aid Manning in as we speak. So, yeah, Mercury. It was in the microwave.
Yeah.
My desktop and laptop both died, and I am currently trying to resurrect my desktop for at least a little while longer, and then you got hit.
I did, but I pulled out my old faithful, which I ironically named Furiosa. She's my white 2009 MacBook, and
yes,
she is a beast. She's slow as shit, but totally reliable and faithful and functions perfectly, but can't upgrade enough to get decent recording stuff on. So then I pulled out the 2012 one that had coffee spilled on it and has not been booted up since it went kerfluffled pre-pandemic. And I managed to, that's what I'm on now, with the aid of a giant whomping plug-in USB keyboard, because I can't get the keyboard is not right. But the trackpad still works just fine, and knock on wood, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it through until I can get a new one. Which, I mean, it was time for a new one anyway, but nobody likes to be forced into it.
No, and listen, I love my computers, but come on.
Right. And it sucks, because, like, last weekend, I literally read 2 whole books, just powered through 2 books, which
that's great.
Young me would be like, really? That's it? Just 2 books in a weekend? But it has been so long since I just lounged and read. And they were good books. I read Anatomy, a love story, which is about, takes place in the 1800s, and it's about a gal who is not quite, she's very, very upper class, meant for somewhat royalty, like pre-betrothed at birth to a viscount, but she wants to be a surgeon. It also has like body snatchers in it. It's pretty fun. And then I read Rock Paper.
Reminds me of the Spindle Cove series by Tessa Dare.
Yeah. And then I read one called Rock Paper Scissors, which was super fun and kind of mind twisty, and I liked that one a lot too. But it was really great. Like, I felt so good because part of my 2022 is like, dude, I'm just gonna do things that I like to do and I want to do, and to make some time for that. So
yeah.
So the week has been trash since then, but that part, amazing.
Well, you know what though? It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am trying and failing to read Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. She is represented by the same literary agent that I am, and I hear the book is amazing, but every time I pick it up, something else occurs.
Yeah.
So I haven't quite gotten there yet, but
I've been inching back into reading, but I do it like, so when I get into bed at night, instead of scrolling, I've been reading, and then I pass out while I'm reading.
Listen, I feel called out.
I am the same way. It takes
Xanax me is like, excuse me.
Okay, you also have to acknowledge you've received, like, you know, Instagram DMs at 3:30 in the morning from me going, check this out. So it's not like,
I mean, okay, fine. Neither one of us are great,
right?
At sleeping.
Fully posted in the Facebook group in the middle of the night. That's like, hey, I just watched this, so you have to too. Because
Yep, and I am always also still awake.
Yeah,
because I am currently keeping vampire hours, it would seem.
And that's okay. It's okay.
No sunburns for me. Not that I was going outside anyway, but... Whew. So the Lunar New Year and the new moon and Imbolc and Mercury going direct, all of those things.
Yes.
Those are happening.
Have
happened.
Yeah. I think Lunar New Year lasts quite a bit. I think it lasts several days. At least in some... I think it's at least in like the Korean culture, I believe it lasts at least 5 days. I could be completely wrong on that. I swear I saw a TikTok on it, which I should not be getting my education strictly from the TikToks, but...
No. I mean, I have been to the Lunar New Year celebration in Chinatown, but it's been a long time.
Mooncakes.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never had one.
Because you have all the allergies.
All of them. Every single one.
Everyone.
Well, except gluten. Thank goodness.
Oh, so I didn't mention, I know I posted in our Facebook group that there is a really cool gal on TikTok who bought a sourdough starter.
Oh, yeah.
It's dehydrated. And the starter is said to have dated back to the Black Plague era.
Listen, I want to see the chain of custody.
Right, and that's the thing, is that, like, a ton of people have come after about it being authentic or not. And she was like...
who the fuck cares? It's a good story.
Pretty much. Like, I felt... She was like, I really don't care. Like, it's for fun. And she made cinnamon rolls with it the first out the gate.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting a starter called the Wharf, which is supposed to be from pretty much the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, which I'm super excited about because my eldest is all about sourdough lately, and I kept telling him about my favorite place on the wharf where they would bake these sourdough bread bowls, and then they would catch clams in the morning and make like homemade clam chowder and fill the soup bowls with. So I'm excited to be able to do that.
Gross. But I also have I have a 200-year-old San Francisco sourdough starter.
Nice.
That I have had for many years.
I mean, and also just the thought of like feeding it and it being a living creature is pretty fun.
Yeah,
like,
I need to feed mine. It's been hibernating. But yeah, it's very satisfying to revive a sourdough starter, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's cool about the possible plague era bread. And I'm sure people are freaking out about, the plague, but they probably have not caught up to recent medical advances with regards to that.
Right, like it's no longer really a thing that
you're gonna be all right.
Be that we got other things to worry about right now.
People do get plague. It happens.
Yeah. I used to joke that when I get every fall, I get this like sinus ear infection, just whomped, and I always referred to it as my plague. And I once jokingly called it that to the pharmacist who had zero sense of humor.
No.
And was like, "You cannot say that. I will need to call the CDC." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just kidding. Like, I'm just real sick, and I'm trying to have a sense of humor. Can I please have my antibiotics now?"
I mean, one, that's hilarious, and two, I don't think plague's that big a deal anymore.
I don't think so either.
I mean, viral plague, maybe, but bacterial? I don't know. Anyway, go team modern medicine. Really into it.
Indeed.
Oh.
As am I.
I just touched the wrong keyboard again. Yeah, for context, those of you who might be listening to this, I am trying to revive my desktop, and my keyboard for my desktop is in the keyboard drawer directly below my laptop, so I keep reaching for the wrong one.
Which happens.
It does. It happens sometimes.
So, hey, should we take a quick break to thank all of our fantastic Curiosity Shop members over on Patreon?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, too. This here is the point of the podcast where we would give a totally normal and not at all creepy welcome to our newest members. Today, we do not have one, so we'll just give all of our members together a shout out.
Yes, we love you. You are the best. And we would totally go explore hidden old graveyards in the woods with you.
Absolutely. And if you want in on this fun, not only are you going to get some really great surprises that we absolutely are working on, like February 12th, I have a knit-a-thon I am participating in to raise awareness for food insecurities.
Oh, yeah.
Where I am raising money to feed, for Feeding America, World Kitchen, No Kid Hungry, and Meals on Wheels. And I think I'm going to do a knit while watching maybe some supernatural, maybe some true crime, maybe some ghosty stuff.
Nice.
Maybe we can all laugh at Zach together.
Oh, dear.
But kind of some, like a live craft and watch stuff with our Patreon members. Also, I am almost done, barring technology issues, I was working on a little valentine.
You better knock on literally everything.
I am knocking on the things, which the cats just looked at me like, what the heck?
Yeah, so did mine.
But also, you also get a huge backlog of Patreon-only episodes, including next week where we talk love tokens, both endearing and weird.
It's true. It is very true.
So check it out.
Yeah. Do it now! Or, wait till the end of the episode. Whatever, you do you.
Indeed.
So, on the subject of Valentine and love-related things, what do you want to do first? Do you want to talk about Valentines, or do you want to talk about love spell murders?
It is entirely up to you.
It's always up to me. You pick.
Let's see. Should we start with love and end with murder?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Hit me with some love.
Let me. Love, true love. It's what brings us together today.
Do you know that my spouse looks just like Wesley?
Oh, that's a keeper.
Mm-hmm.
That's a keeper.
Just saying. And if you don't know what we're talking about, I don't know, you might want to re-examine your priorities.
Seriously. So, maybe not true love, but, love it or hate it, Valentine's Day is right around the corner.
True.
And so today I'm going to talk about the history of Valentine's Day cards.
All right.
So, like the actual holiday itself, there's a bit of debate about who was the first to send a Valentine's Day declaration of love.
Mm-hmm.
Some sources state that down and out Saint Valentine himself was the first.
Oh, Saint Valentine. Wah, wah.
Yes. Officially known as Saint Valentine of Rome, not to be confused with the dozen or so others known as Saint Valentine.
Really?
It is
saints.
said that this temple priest was beheaded for helping Christian couples marry. Just let that sink in for a bit. But legend also tells tale that he was in love with his jailer's daughter.
Uh-oh.
And allegedly sent her a little love letter before his execution. But it's the Catholic Church, so there's a ton of confusion as to what the truth of his life and death really actually are. In fact, they discontinued liturgical veneration of him, ironically, in 1969. Yet
nice.
He still appears... Nice, right? Yet he still appears on the very long list of saints. So, not sure what the deal is exactly, but again, Catholic Church.
There are like
recovering Catholic
50,000 different Marys. So
seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
can you tell that I was not raised Catholic? I can't. You weren't either, right? You were raised Lutheran.
Oh, right? I'm a recovering Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I was a shitty Catholic. Yeah.
Well, all right, then you're no help.
Yeah, no, I'm not. So the day itself was designated as the Feast of Saint Valentine by Pope Gelasius in 496 AD. So I mean, we're talking far back. Now the day also shares history with a Bronze Age pagan Roman celebration held on February 15th called Lupercalia.
That's the day before my birthday.
So this pastoral festival, again, was observed annually on the 15th, and it was to purify the city, promoting health and fertility. And how did it cast evil spirits out of the town and then welcome in health and fertility?
Oh, please tell me.
Well, it wasn't with lovey-dovey candy hearts.
Uh-oh.
Instead, it was people they smeared their foreheads with blood and ran through the village wearing wolf skins.
Whose blood?
And that's like I don't know, that's the G-rated version.
Okay.
On whole, it was a bloody, violent, sexually charged celebration, awash with animal sacrifice, random matchmaking, all kinds of coupling in the biblical sense.
I guess they were, feeling visceral?
It was a party. And there's much, much more to Lupercalia. And I suspect that we'll do a deep dive in the future on it. But you get the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
That, these two things are smack butt up against each other. So still others credit the medieval poet Geoffrey Chaucer with having possibly inventing the holiday somewhere around 1375. And that's when Chaucer wrote a poem called The Parliament of Fowls, in which he links courtly love to a celebration of St. Valentine. The poem specifically refers to February the 14th as a day when birds and humans both go in search of mates. I don't want to know why it was specifically just birds and humans, but you do you, Chaucer.
Maybe he had a pair of mourning doves outside or something.
It is possible.
I don't know.
But the manuscript collection of the British Library in London holds the oldest known surviving Valentine, a poem composed in French in 1415 by Charles, Duke of Orleans, to his wife, which he sent while imprisoned in the Tower of London after the Battle of Agincourt. And while
his actual wife? That never happened.
Yeah, right? That was a keeper in those times. Right? Now, while my French is continuing to get much better, and I'm on a 236-day streak,
nice.
I'm still reading the English translation because it's a little long, and I'm not quite there yet. So this sweet little ditty goes a little something like this. I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine, since for me you were born too soon, and I for you was born too late. God forgives him who has estranged me from you for the whole year. I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine. While I might have suspected that such a destiny thus would have happened this day, how much that love would have commanded. I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine. Which, fair.
Was he way older than her?
I don't know. Now, there also seems to be a slight correlation between imprisoned men and debauchery in this holiday in general.
Everybody got thrown in the Tower of London at some point.
That's true. And I'm guessing it was a little lonely. So the British Library also possesses the oldest known Valentine in the English language, and it was a poem comprised in 1477 by a woman named Marjorie Bruce to her fickle fiancé, John Paston. In this letter, Marjorie describes John as her right well beloved Valentine.
Well.
But by the 17th century, Valentine's Day gets a shout out in William Shakespeare's Hamlet when Ophelia is given the lines, "Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning betime, and I am made at your window to be your Valentine."
That's cute.
Yeah, a little sweet. It's a little sweeter than, I'm sick of love. However, it was in the 18th century that I would argue that the most well-known Valentine's poem, perhaps even poem in general, made its first appearance, and it was found in a collection of nursery rhymes printed in 1784, and it read, "The rose is red, the violet's blue, the honey's sweet, and so are you." And because history is fun, it turns out that while this was the first appearance of the poem in this form, many date its origins back to Sir Edmund Spenser's 1590s epic The Fairy Queen, which featured the lines, "She bathed with roses red and violets blue, and all the sweetest flowers that in the forest grew." I personally think that's a bit of a stretch. You talk about roses and violets and sweet flowers, and those were popular flowers in the time, so
I don't know. I feel all right about that connection. I also like the second version better.
It is more lovely. So we've got a brief idea.
It breaks a cardinal rule, though.
What is that?
We don't fuck with the fae.
Oh, duh, yeah. That is true.
Obviously. Come on.
Obvious. I don't know what I was thinking.
You weren't.
So, I wasn't. It won't happen again. So we have a brief idea of when Valentine's Day originated and a bit of a sense of when flowery words were put to paper. But when were the Valentine cards themselves actually like a thing? So history has it that the first Valentine cards were sent in the 18th century. And of course they were like nothing like the mass-produced cards that we've got now. They were all like delightfully handmade. Lovers would decorate paper with romantic symbols, including flowers and love knots, and also including like puzzles and lines of poetry.
And locks of hair.
Yes. You could even, if you were not inspired, you could even buy books like the 1797 classic, The Young Man's Valentine Writer, that offered guidance on selecting the appropriate words and images to woo your lover.
I really want to see that book.
I tried to find that one. I couldn't, but I found another one, and I think I linked it. If I didn't link it, I will make sure that I linked it. It was for women. It was not a young man's one. These cards were then slipped secretly under a door or tied to a door knocker. And during this time, individuals may have also sent Saint Valentine's keys to one another, with the message being, unlock your loving heart.
Oh.
And these keys were also apparently used to ward off epilepsy, which was then also known as the Saint Valentine's Day malady. There's a story in there, I'm guessing, that I could not find. Is that just, I mean, I guess excessive swooning might, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I hadn't really thought
seizure-esque. But I don't know, they really had a definition of epilepsy.
Yeah, there's
like a diagnosis.
Got to be. I mean, wasn't it just fits?
Yeah, the fits.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know, listeners. If you know way more about the history of medicine and also Catholic saints, hit us up.
Yeah, and why a key would fix epilepsy. Like, maybe they were super heavy, you just put it on their chest, they didn't flop as much. I'm not sure. Like,
I mean, keys, generally speaking, are very powerful magical symbols.
Oh, that's true. The Catholics would not like that.
The Catholics would just turn it into a cross and be done with it.
Right? Exactly. They'd steal it. They'd appropriate it and morph it into what they wanted it to be.
No, it is a key to the tabernacle.
Kingdom of God.
Well, it happens.
So, it does. In Georgian Britain, that's where pre-printed cards first began to appear. Though they were not yet as popular as they would eventually come. The oldest surviving example does date back to 1797, which is the same year as the Young Man's Valentine Writer.
That's later than I would have guessed.
Right? This card is held at the York Castle Museum and was sent by one Catherine Mossday to Mr. Brown of London. It is decorated with flowers and images of Cupid, which a verse printed around the border that reads, "Since on this ever happy day, all nature's full of love and play, yet harmless still if my design, 'tis but to be your Valentine."
Well, that's sweet, but
and it is very sweet.
Mr. Brown is... How many of those must have lived in London at the time? I'm just
right.
trying to consider delivering that.
Right. So it was the early 19th century that the industrialization of Britain hit, and with that, rapid advances in printing and manufacturing, and that's when it became super easy to mass-produce Valentine's Day cards, and they soon became immensely popular. It was estimated that by the mid-1820s, some 200,000 Valentines were circulated in London alone.
Wow.
The introduction of the uniform penny post, which is, long story short, a component of the comprehensive reform of the Royal Mail, which was UK's first official postal service. That also took place in the 19th century.
Oh, this is like postcards, right?
Yeah, like, and in 1840, it bolstered the popularity of Valentine's Day cards yet further. And reports suggested by the late 1840s, the amount of cards being circulated doubled, and then doubled again in the next 2 decades.
Wow.
So they had mass producing, they had really cheap postage, so it was, you know, you could send them all out at once rather than having your footsman deliver them or whatever they did in the past, for the uppity folks. So many Victorian Valentine cards have survived, and they really are something to look at. They're very, some of them are very sweet. I didn't find nearly as many weird ones as I was hoping for. But the most intriguing is a collection of over 1,700 examples that is held again at the Museum of London. This is the archive of a stationer named Jonathan King, who ran a card-making enterprise in London.
That's cool.
It is very cool. The collection has been digitized, and it demonstrates like the huge array of designs and verses and sentiments that were popular with lovers in Victorian Britain. Again, you've got elaborate paper lace work, embossing, and other intricate designs. The more expensive the card, the more elaborate the design would be. And this would then correlate to how much your lover's, like how much your lover loved you was how much he spent on the card. Right. Which is kind of a concept that is stuck, if we're being honest.
Not wrong.
It's, typical imagery, as I already pointed out, was flowers, love knots, and the Cupid. Though hearts were sometimes used, Victorian cards did not feature the well-known stereotype like red heart, typical of Valentine's Day cards that we have today. Lucy Worsley visited the collection in her October of 2015 BBC series, A Very British Romance, and I believe it's episode 2 of the season, and I put a link to where you can watch it on PBS and also on the BBC. Mm-hmm. The program featured the most elaborate card collection, which was, again, made by Jonathan King, for the woman that he loved, actually.
Well, that's nice.
Right. So there's a huge card that, like, has layer after layer of lace. It's decorated with embroidery and beads and ribbons and shells. It has many lines of poetry and even a secret concealed card inside featuring a paper chest of drawers. And each drawer lists a womanly virtue. In the final drawer is a gold ring. This suggests that the card actually served as his proposal to his future wife, and she did actually accept his offer.
That's kind of cute.
They went on to have 15 children.
Well, I guess they liked each other.
One of them was named, you guessed it, Valentine. 15 kids. I cannot.
No. Fairly certain my uterus would just fall out.
Mine would have tapped out at, like, not even close to 15. Like, I had 2, and that was fun.
I have 0, and mine seems to have tapped out, so.
So, not all Victorian Valentine's Day cards were so romantic, however. The less loved up were able to buy vinegar valentines.
Yes.
Cards designed to insult. It's a theory that I can get behind. But these cards typically, like, poked fun at a man's profession or a woman's appearance. One example that survives in the collection of the University of Birmingham features a cartoon of a woman with a very large nose, and under the title Miss Nosy are the following lines. On account of your talk of others' affairs, at most dances you sit warming the chairs. Because of the care with which you attend to all others' business, you haven't a friend.
Ooh.
Which, sick burn.
Yow.
Right? They did not play. Sometimes men sent such cards to their male friends in order to mock them, with examples featuring taunts about baldness or alcoholism.
Oh, that's wholesome.
Right. It was clearly very insulting to receive a card like this, which is probably why there's very few, like relatively few examples that have survived. Because I'm fairly certain many of them were ripped and burned. And,
I was going to say, immediately into the fire.
Exactly. Although I do like the thought of sending like a little bit of a sick burn, but in fun, but not one that's so harsh. Not picking on like physical features.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
a good joke. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So other unconventional cards were less vicious, however, and reveal the Victorian sense of fun. One example at the York Castle Museum features a lock of real human hair fashioned into a mustache. The card reads, "For the new woman, with St. Valentine's hairiest greetings and best hopes that she will receive another mustache with a man attached."
I kind of love that.
I was gonna say that one tickles me, and I really do think it's fun. Like that, super fun.
Yeah, I mean, it assumes an awful lot about one's preferences, but also
right.
That's hilarious.
Yes, it's the perfect amount of cheeky, I think.
I agree.
By the mid-19th century, the Valentine's card made their way across the Atlantic and rapidly gained popularity in America, where they were initially advertised as a British fashion. Advanced American technologies meant that more elaborate cards were produced cheaply, which further encouraged their popularity. In 1913, Hallmark Cards produced their first Valentine's Day card, representing a key development in the commercialization of Valentine's Day.
Interesting.
Thanks in large part to marketing campaigns, Valentine's Day has today become a time not only for sending cards, but flowers, jewelry, perfume, chocolates. That's pretty much the key elements. And now you know that this annual celebration of love is anything but modern, but we've managed to, just commercialize the shit out of it, and it's I don't think it's as fun. I like the thought of hand making cards, and
yeah,
even though I don't understand why a key would cure epilepsy, I think it's sweet that you would want to cure somebody's epilepsy.
It's nice. At least it's not attached to a chastity belt joke.
Right. There was a lot. I was a little concerned. But I didn't dig up too much problematic stuff.
That's
just
probably for the best. I'm sure there was plenty out there.
Oh, I'm sure. But thankfully, I managed to steer clear of it. So yeah, that takes us to once Hallmark took hold of it, the rest is pretty much history. But
right.
But I think it's a fun little genre. It's also, again, interesting that it's something started so very long ago, allegedly, and it has withstood time for so long.
I mean, love notes are pretty timeless.
Yeah, they are. I went through a phase of where I read just book after book of love notes, like Simone de Beauvoir's Letters to Jean-Paul Sartre, and just, there's something so wonderful and romantic about times where you couldn't just send a text or an email, and you had to wait for, post to arrive, and, people had entire relationships, just by written word.
And a fuck ton
like
of overthinking.
Yeah. Well, that's me all the time. But, yeah. So, now you have it. Valentine's Day cards. It's coming up.
I ordered some Valentine cards yesterday.
Ooh.
Because someone I know made some. But, so you might get one. I don't know if they'll come in time.
Ooh. So I could tell you what the one that I'm working on looks like. Or we could keep it a surprise. It's up to you.
Whatever you want.
I will say it involves, so in working on my business, like the Uber Designs things, along with more stuff for the patrons, I have come up with the character of inspirational Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
So the Valentine may be a little love note from Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh. Well.
Yeah. So yeah.
So do you want to hear about murder?
Yes! I mean, please.
Okay, so I was going to look into love spells generally, but then I came across this whole whirlwind of a multi-person murder spree involving hypnosis and, well, obviously I needed to go with that.
Well, I mean, love spells are genuinely a no-no anyway, for the most part.
They are, and this is, yeah, we'll get there. All right. So I'm going to tell you the story of Dr. Coppolino's historic, but hypnotic love spell murder.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the story of Dr. Carl Coppolino, who is a 30-something-year-old author and anesthesiologist and hypnotist, who was accused of putting his mistress under a hypnotic love spell and then also murdering 2 people. So the story's very casual.
Very cash.
Yeah. All right. The setting. Like many bad ideas, this story begins in New Jersey. And I'm really sorry, but I'm in Brooklyn, and I'm contractually obligated to make this joke. There's nothing I can do about it. So, sorry, New Jersey. Anyway, it was the early 1960s, and Dr. Carl Coppolino was, as I said, an anesthesiologist, and his wife, Dr. Carmela Coppolino, was a medical doctor who was working for a pharmaceutical company. They were well educated, they were both in their 30s, and they were seemingly reasonably well off. And as far as I could tell, at this point, there weren't any glaring red flags popping up in their marriage or in other aspects of their life. It seems all right. But then something went wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I couldn't really find any firm details as to what happened. Spoiler alert, because maybe it didn't. But, yeah, in 1962, Carl was rendered unable to continue his work in anesthesiology due to a heart condition.
Huh.
Yeah, and according to evidence that would be later presented at one of his trials, that condition might not have existed at all.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, I don't know what the condition supposedly was or how it might have impacted his life, but he cited it as the reason for his move away from practicing anesthesiology and focusing his efforts on writing and research.
I think anesthesiologist, at least at one point, had the highest suicide rate, professions wise.
It's pretty easy to kill yourself with anesthesia, so. I wonder if that overlaps with drug use.
That reminds me of Cider House Rules and the ether addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But also, at least nowadays, I think that it all the blame trickles down, and I think that it ends up falling onto the anesthesiologist, which doesn't make any sense, but...
I don't know.
But I think it's a stressful position, no matter what.
Probably. I don't think Carl here was fussed about any of that. So when he moved away from actually practicing due to the heart condition, he also started working specifically on the subject of hypnotherapy for smoking, weight loss, and alcoholism. And I think these were the only areas, but descriptions of his books are hard to track down beyond the titles, and I don't have any interest in owning any of those. So...
Makes sense.
I went ahead and didn't. Yeah. But anyway... oh no, I've lost my spot.
Oh no.
Wait, this is the first time. Shocking. All right. So remember that hypnosis part, because it's going to come back later, as you may have gleaned from the description of... I've lost all the words of the thing that I'm telling you about. All right, guys? All right. Interestingly, at about the same time as his heart condition would suddenly exist, so too did his FBI file.
Oh.
Yeah, it seems that someone had written threatening letters to a nurse anesthetist at Riverview Hospital, where both Carl and said nurse worked.
Uh-oh.
And I just want to tell you that my lisp can barely handle saying that word, so I hope I don't have to say it again. All right. The end result was Carl leaving the hospital with a heart condition, and the nurse, in fear, fucked off to an entirely different state.
Oh, shit. When you move in states, you know something went real wrong.
Right? Yeah. Someone smoothed it over by describing it as a hostile work environment. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so with that, suddenly on the horizon, several red flags were waving proudly in the wind. But it could have all been fine at this point. Except for the part, where he was a giant asshole. Because if he had just stopped there, Carl had disability insurance, and he was getting $22,000 annually, which $22,000 in 1962 was just under $200,000 today. So
that's a decent.
Yeah, so he was doing all right.
Decent.
And his wife, Dr. Carmela, was still being a doctor.
Oh yeah, double income, doctor level.
Yeah, and I mean she was a researcher in a pharmaceutical company, so I'm not sure if there was a difference in pay with regards to practicing. I imagine there was a difference in pay in regards to gender.
She's a woman.
But
still, that's plenty for him to just sit his ass down and chill out.
Right? So either way, they were still living the good life. And I mean, it's New Jersey. It's
Jersey.
Yes. There's a certain level of bougie that exists, and they were solidly within it. So now we enter their across the street neighbors and probable murder number 1.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the Farbers, Lieutenant Colonel William E. Farber and Marjorie Farber, were both about 20 years older than the Coppolinos. And things started out innocently enough. The two families, became close, like, good family friends. And a very normal 1962 activity to be friends with the neighbors across the street.
Yeah.
And at some point, when Marjorie wanted to quit smoking, of course, she enlisted the help of Carl Coppolino, who just happened to specialize in hypnosis techniques that did just that. So everything at this point, totally fine, totally normal. Whether or not you're into hypnosis, there's nothing especially weird about this. This is still a thing that happens today.
Yeah.
Now, according to Marjorie Farber, during the session, she felt a growing sense of wanting to be close to Carl. Then one thing led to another, and they were making out. And then the next day, they were fucking.
I hate it when that happens.
Oops. And, that continued until at some point in the not too distant future, in the middle of the night, the Coppolinos were awoken by a phone call from Marjorie. And it was reported that her husband, Bill, was experiencing all of the classic symptoms of a heart attack. So, the paleness, the sweating, all of the things. The chest pains. Basically, you could have just opened a medical textbook and read the thing. Now, for reasons unclear, Marjorie didn't call an ambulance, but she had Carl come over. Yeah. And
I mean, I get having you come over.
Oh, yeah, me too.
That's when you also call the ambulance.
Yeah, and so according to Carl, he was over there and he was trying to get Marjorie to call an ambulance, and either she and the lieutenant colonel didn't want to. Either way, by the time he left, the lieutenant colonel wasn't looking great, but he wasn't in immediate crisis. And later that morning, according to testimony by Carl in his first trial, he returned to the Farber house to, once again, ask Bill to go to the hospital. And once again, for reasons, Bill refused. So Carl made Marjorie sign a release, washing his hands of responsibility for Bill's care, because, he didn't want to get sued.
That makes sense.
Now, at this point, I have several questions.
Was it 62, you said?
Yeah.
1962?
Okay, so that might be I think this is 1965.
Okay, but it's still prior to 911. That was my whole thinking.
Yeah, no, it's 1963, sorry.
Okay.
But yes, prior to 911. Now, my question is, A, why are we calling the anesthesiologist and not the medical doctor who lives across the street?
Oh, shit, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Obviously they're both doctors. They both went to medical school. But...
Right, but different specialties.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I guess in anesthesia, you'd probably have to know a lot about the cardiovascular system to, not kill someone. But I don't know. I just have questions.
Yeah.
So he made Marjorie sign that release, and then at the trial, Marjorie did confirm that there was a release and that the signature on it was hers, but that she had absolutely no recollection of signing it. So, And then, later that night, the evening of the heart issues, not of the trial, Bill was dead.
Oh,
yep.
Shit.
And Carmela, Carl's wife, signed the death certificate.
Okay.
And the certificate read, quote, I hereby certify that I attended the deceased from 3:30 a.m. to 6 a.m., and that I last saw the deceased alive at 1:30 p.m. on July 30th, 1963, and the death occurred at approximately 4 p.m. from coronary thrombosis. Note that she attended the deceased. No, she didn't.
Right?
Yeah. So, alas, New Jersey state law requires doctors to be practicing medicine in order to sign death certificates.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And Carmelo was a medical doctor, yeah, but she was also a researcher. She was not a practicing physician.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, the death certificate was eventually deemed fraudulent.
Would that constitute malpractice then?
Probably, but I don't...
Why would you do that? I don't understand why you would do that. Like, I don't...
Because you're afraid of your husband.
Oh, that's true.
I think that's why you might do it.
Yeah, that'll probably...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just guessing. And she ought to be, because, foreshadowing, there's a second death.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. All right. So, in trial, Marjorie testified that Carl had been telling her for some time that her husband, quote, has got to go. And then, according to her, he supplied her with a syringe filled with anesthetic, which she claimed to have ultimately been unable to administer. She chickened out, I guess.
Okay.
And Marjorie also claimed to have been hypnotized by Dr. Coppolino, rendering her helpless with regards to making her own decisions. And somewhat confusing to me is that later in trial it comes up that she then finally got the nerve to do it and mixed up her own poison concoction and stabbed him in the thigh. I don't know what the poison concoction was. It apparently made him being the lieutenant colonel, jump up and yell about Charlie horses, and then all of the heart attack nonsense happened. So,
so she dispensed the liquid, the actual medicine that she was given, but kept the syringe, created her own solution, and then used the same syringe?
I don't fucking know. I don't think she does either, because I don't think she had anything to do with it.
Well, and also are you going to be like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was hypnotized.
Well, yes.
But if you were hypnotized, then why wouldn't you, like, if you were hypnotized, then you wouldn't have had hesitation to administer the medicine to begin with, I would think.
Yes.
Seems like selective.
Selective hypnosis. Well, the problem is that hypnosis doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I mean, actual medical hypnosis does not work like that. I am personally not hypnotizable, but if you are, you have to be willing to be. In order for it to work. It simply does not work if you are unwilling.
He hypnotized her with his penis.
He did something.
That's it.
Yeah. So, later in the trial, Marjorie then claimed to have been hypnotized by Coppolino in a way that rendered her helpless to do anything as she watched Coppolino smother her husband to death.
Oh, that's a very different death.
Yeah. In her description of how Coppolino had hypnotized her, Mrs. Farber seemed to go into a trance herself. And this is a quote from the trial transcripts.
Okay.
She seemed to go into a trance herself on the stand, her head slouched to one side and her eyes closed. Mr. Bailey, meanwhile, leaned forward from his seat in front of her and snapped his fingers again and again in an apparent attempt to arouse her. Listen. So just talking about that dick just immediately transports you? I mean, shit.
That must be some, yeah.
And, I mean, with a heart condition, you wouldn't, like, that doesn't lend itself to
rigorous
virility. Yeah, anyway, whatever. So, like I said, that's not really how hypnosis works, but it also kind of doesn't matter because she threw herself under the bus several times, but it wasn't her trial. So then Coppolino would testify in his own defense, which contradicted his mistress in all ways except the following. They fucked, and he hypnotized her to help her quit smoking. And I wrote in my notes after that while I was researching, sure, Jan. Because so that's how I feel about that.
Right.
In the end, hypnosis and all, he was acquitted of murder.
Wow.
Yeah, but then he killed his wife.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I mean, that's not funny, but it is, it's
stupid.
Jesus.
It is just stupid. Like, you've already gone through it.
Yeah, why would you do that? Whatever. So, after the burial of Lieutenant Colonel, the Coppolinos were like, uh-oh, and decided that they needed to get out of New Jersey, and so they moved to Florida. Because that is also where good ideas come from.
Right?
Yep. And it would seem that Marjorie was still into Dr. Coppolino enough that she also sold her home and moved to the same town called Longboat Key in Florida, and that's near Sarasota. There.
That's a choice. That's a choice.
Oh, it gets better. She asked the Coppolinos if they would be godparents for her children because she was converting to Catholicism.
I thought you were going to say Mormon.
No.
Some sister wiving going on.
Yeah.
Wow. She's converting to Catholicism.
So at this point, it's 1965. So the one suspicious death that was, let's be honest, almost certainly murder. Yeah, was a couple years in the past. And Carl was not content with one mistress.
Oh, boy.
And Carl was 35. Just gonna put this out there. It doesn't necessarily mean much, but it does tend to not work this way with regards to men. But Marjorie was, at that point, 54. And then he decided to also start dating Mary Gibson, who was 52 and a wealthy widow.
Oh, yeah, bastard, Carl.
Marjorie
Good
wasn't
gosh.
pleased.
Yeah, I'm guessing not.
And then she went a little spy happy private eye, like what would have been internet stalking if it were happening today.
Oh, Margie.
Oh, yeah. So, poor Muffin.
Yeah.
Now, deciding that his marriage needed to go away, he oh god waited until the couple's wedding anniversary, like his and Carmela's, to inform her that he was no longer in love with her, and we actually don't know what happened because Carmela was dead 10 days later.
What a dick. I mean...
Right? Like, you didn't have to
do
that, man.
Seriously. Like, if you're gonna kill her, why break her heart first?
Funny Second you put it that way.
Oh.
Alright, okay. So when Carl called Carmela's family back in New Jersey, also just fun fact, Carmela's dad's name is Carmelo, and he's also a doctor, and so, man, reading all of this stuff was, I feel like I need a crime whiteboard with strings.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when Carl called Carmela's family to tell them that she had died, he said that she had died of, quote, a massive coronary occlusion. And later, Carl would lie to Carmela's father, Dr. Carmelo Moscato. These are all just beautifully New Jersey Italian names. As an aside, oh, I love it. It makes me very happy.
Makes the Sopranos theme song play in my head.
Right. So, he said to her dad, also the doctor, that the Sarasota County medical examiner had performed an autopsy and that they had found the heart problem.
Yeah, I'm guessing Dad didn't buy it.
No. He was like, my daughter was 34, dude.
Right.
And she was healthy. And he questioned the doctor who had been summoned and would eventually sign the death certificate, because the doctor, when she arrived, well, Carmela was already dead. So there wasn't really any evidence aside from what Dr. Coppolino said happened to his wife. There was, however, weirdly, an injection site on Carmela's left buttock.
Okay, see, if they noticed that,
I don't think they did, or at least if they did, they didn't note it. I'm not really sure. The doctor who signed the death certificate was Dr. Juliet Caro, and I don't really know how she knew these people. I mean, she might not have at all, and therefore might not have had any reason to think it was weird, and might have just trusted that two doctors in a household would know if one of them had a heart condition.
Right.
Which, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. But Carmela's dad was like, listen, no. And he got in touch with the Florida authorities and was like, my 34-year-old daughter hasn't ever had signs of heart ailments. P.S. I'm a doctor, so is she.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so apparently when the paramedics showed up and took away the body and did all of the things that you do when someone has passed away in a home, the neighbors just assumed that it was Carl because he was known to have a heart condition, not Carmela.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, he almost certainly did not have a heart condition anyway, but that was at least in his lore.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, and heart conditions, I mean, just genetically, statistically rather, it's men versus, women are more likely to have it,
Yeah, it is. And if that ran in the family, Carmela's dad, also a doctor, would have known. But, I mean, weird things happen. Sometimes young people have heart attacks. Like, this isn't beyond the realm of possibilities. It's just beyond the realm of credulity given all of the context.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Like, if it was just average couple occurrence, but they were both doctors. So, one of them would have noted, especially considering the fact that he allegedly had a heart condition. That would make him more hyper aware of.
Sorry, Jack is jumping around. Yes, I agree. But at this point, Carmela's body was sent back to New Jersey so she could be buried near her family. And
Good.
Carl, 6 weeks later, was like, you know what? I'm going to marry me a rich old widow. And did not marry Marjorie Farber, but instead married Mary Gibson, the other woman he had been dating, in a way that made Marjorie mad. I don't know how Carmela felt about any of this, because nothing ever said. I mean, I assume she must have known, but...
Well, I mean, he went on record, like, saying that he stooped the Marjorie, so she knew that happened. I would be like, if you want to move down here to be with him so badly, like, I'll just stay back. Like, you can have him, because it's not like he was a stellar human being. Like, he was a piece of shit. So I'd have been like, here, have him, that's fine.
Right. Well, I think, though, that both murder investigations happened after the second death. So all of the things, I'm not sure if I misspoke earlier, but all of the things that were happening were sort of just gathering in the list of,
Okay, so and I'm sorry, she had to have known whether you want, you know what I mean? Like, and here's the thing, like, she had to have known that something was up with him and Marjorie. And then if he sat there on my anniversary and pulled that fuckery and been like, I'm not in love with you anymore, I'd be like, that's fine.
Oh, he gets even worse.
Oh, I don't like him.
I mean, I guess you don't get much worse than murdering your wife. But he added insult to injury, certainly, because you know how he didn't marry Marjorie?
Yeah.
You know what he did instead?
What?
Literally offered her a position as housekeeper in his home.
Oh!
Yeah, that's right. And that, I believe, would be his downfall, ultimately. Because Marjorie was like, absolutely not.
I am not, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Marjorie went on back to New Jersey and went straight to the police.
Good for Marjorie.
Yep. And the reason that she did that at that point instead of earlier she said was she was afraid that Carl would kill again, since clearly he's already got a couple under his belt. And she said that she thought he might want to kill his current wife. Which, I mean, wealthy widow, sure, maybe, but I'm pretty sure she thought he might want to kill her.
I mean, yeah.
Her as in Marjorie. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really pissed off about Carmela because I don't think she needed to die. I think she probably been like, you know what? That's cool. Go have the little old lady. I'm gonna take the kids. We're going back to Jersey. Peace out.
Yeah, I don't think they had kids.
Oh, well then, yeah, I definitely would have been like, bye. That's right, Marjorie had the kids.
I mean, I could be wrong. So, maybe they just didn't come up, but I don't think they did.
Yeah, no, because that would make things trickier. But yeah, I'd have been like, peace out, I'm gone.
And so, under the guise of wanting to protect the current Mrs. Coppolino, Marjorie was like, all right, let me tell you what I know.
Let me get a little petty.
Yeah. But Marjorie didn't know that there were already investigations happening in 2 states looking at Dr. Coppolino as a possible killer. But they did not... what they couldn't figure out was how he had killed Carmela.
So that was clearly before they found them?
Yeah, and so when... Well, no, they found her all right. It's...
No, but the puncture wound on her ass.
Yeah, it was before they found that.
Because, yeah, once you find that, it's not like you could... Unless you're super flexible, like, self-injecting on your butt is not...
Self-injecting on your butt would be super easy.
Really?
I mean, poke yourself in the butt with a pen. It's pretty easy.
I suppose.
Anyway, I don't think that she was injecting herself. Yeah, so this is the point at which Marjorie's thoughts on how her husband died, or maybe possibly concrete knowledge, started helping. Specifically, the story about the syringe.
Yeah.
So this is how it turns out that it went down with his wife specifically. Because he was an anesthesiologist, he injected her with... All right, now we're going to have to buckle in for this word because I have not found it said out loud. So it's succinylcholine chloride? I don't fucking know.
Okay.
Yes. Succinyl chloride, I think. There are too many consonants altogether in that. But anyway, it's not very hard to find if you want to Google it. So that kind of OD is particularly hard to detect because the body contains succinic acid and choline.
Okay.
And so a whole ass test had to be invented by Joseph Umberger just to be able to prove this particular case.
Ooh. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
I like that. Science.
Yeah. So even though the case seemed kind of flimsy, the prosecutor, Frank Schaub, built a story around showing motive and opportunity and also the scientific background for committing the murder.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there that presented properly.
Yeah.
I can see being a pretty strong case.
And apparently, Coppolino had persuaded the responding doctor, who then signed the death certificate, that his wife had been having chest pains earlier in the day, which is how the death was declared a heart attack.
Which, again, that would... put him at fault, though. I mean, I could see... Yeah, no. There's no way around it. Like, if you are a doctor and your doctor wife is having chest pains, like, there's no way that there's not...
Yeah, but if she's having a heart attack, she is perfectly allowed to not seek treatment. I mean...
Right, but...
Or, I feel like a lot of people might feel a twinge and be like, and wait it out. So, like, I kind of understand that. I have had family members who have, out of an abundance of caution, gone in and found out they were having heart attacks. So it isn't that unlikely. It's just very unlikely with a healthy 34-year-old woman.
Right.
So, like I said earlier, even though he called Carmela's dad about an autopsy, there was never an autopsy. And I guess that one of the motives laid out here was that finances had been getting tough, hence the wealthy widow, because Carl upped Carmela's life insurance from $10,000 to $55,000 before her death. And...
Because that's not shady.
No, and Carmela had formerly made... Oh, well, here's the information. She had formerly made $16,000 as a physician in New Jersey, as opposed to Coppolino's disability insurance income of $22,000. So, yeah, that answers that. And Carmela, when they moved to Florida, I guess she couldn't pass the medical board exam for Florida. Like, I don't know if she just didn't have time to study. I don't know what the deal was. But she failed the exam, so she couldn't work in Florida. And so, like, the life that they had been living ceased to be the life that Carl wanted to live.
But still a decent income for, like...
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And so once the medical test was invented and then proved that Carmela had in fact died of that anesthetic overdose by way of puncturing her buttock, which buttock as a singular will never not be funny to me, and it's not funny at all in this situation. But
he couldn't even do it to her face. He had to get her from behind.
Right?
Fucking coward.
Mm-hmm. So when this whole, spoiler alert, being convicted of murder happened, some people were like, that's interesting. His mistress's husband died in a not dissimilar fashion.
Oh, shit, the nurse?
No. Lieutenant Colonel Farber. The first
Oh, okay. I thought there was like a knife. I thought there was a third.
No.
I was like, whoa.
No, his mistress Marjorie's husband, Lieutenant Colonel Farber, who died of the heart attack, in quotes.
At a much more appropriate age for said.
Oh, yeah.
Ailment.
Which is why it didn't seem weird at the time.
Yeah.
But they were like, and exhumed the body.
Aha!
And
that'll get you.
He was buried in, I think, at Arlington Military Cemetery, and so he was easy to find. And the records were solid. So they exhumed the body, and they found a fracture in the cartilage in his neck that suggested strangulation, but it also could have happened when he was being exhumed. He also had arteriosclerosis, so he could very much have died of a heart attack, as was originally claimed. So he was acquitted of the lieutenant colonel's murder, but he was convicted of second-degree murder in the case of his wife, Dr. Carmela, and they have, I believe, reverted to her maiden name out of respect because he was a fuckface, but they said nice. Dr. Carmela Musetto. And this is gonna make you really mad.
Oh, no.
So the date of the murder was August 28th, 1965. He was sentenced in Florida on April 28th of 1967. He was let out for good behavior after 12 years, being paroled in 1979.
Is he still alive?
I have no idea. I don't think probably, but,
What a dick.
And motherfucker had the audacity to write a book called, it's called The Crime That Never Was, about the murder. While he was in fucking prison.
So hard.
Yeah.
No. Oh.
Yeah. So that is the story of
I don't like him.
The hypnotic love, not love, the hypnotic, terrifying Romeo killer. That's what I'm gonna call him.
I'm just gonna call him a fucking dick.
Yeah.
I just don't want.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So remember, kids, hypnosis does not work that way, and only fuck around with Marjorie if you want to find out.
Good on her, though.
Right? Yep.
Poor Carmela.
Yep.
I just feel so bad for Carmela.
Yeah. And so I want to round this out on a high note. And suggest a love spell for our listeners. Now, love spells are only ethical when everyone gives consent. But this one
consent is key.
Is great because it's a self-love spell. So,
yes,
it's just for you, which is great.
I like
it. So the fantastic witches over at House Witch in Salem.
Oh, I love House Witch
too. Put out, I think it was last Valentine's Day, a love spell that I really liked, and I would like to read the ingredients to you because I think it's lovely, and there will be a link included in the show notes for you to go actually get the full experience.
Yay.
But
and it's House H-A-U-S.
Yes, H-A-U-S. So what you need is your favorite outfit.
Okay.
A candle or candles, pink or red if you've got them. A lighter or matches, a mirror, lotion or body oil, and chocolate.
All right.
Or your favorite snack, whatever that might be. And then the entire spell is just setting the space and carving out some time. Carving out some time for you and taking care of you. And just thinking that you're great. And so...
Because you are.
Yeah. So it is...
I like that.
It's all about making yourself feel like the best you. That... Like, however you feel the best. It's about making yourself feel like that.
I like it. That's our 2022 energy
Yep.
right there.
It says in the spell, whatever makes you feel beautiful, sensual, powerful, and fierce, do that. Because that is the vibe we are trying to embody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So,
fuck Carl, but I love that.
So yeah, I'm not going to read the rest of it because I want you to go give House Witch some love because they are great. And I believe Erica, the head witch in charge, is the person who wrote this spell. And I also would like to give a hat tip to a website called the Malefactors Register.
Oh.
I
like the
with
name
the
of that.
subheading Crime, Punishment, Law, Writing. And the really well laid out deep dive that Mark Gribben did laying out this particular story in all its complicated moving parts. It was super helpful while I was doing research because I found this by looking through newspapers at the time. I thought that I was going to find like people suing other people for fake love spells, but that is not what I found. And so many of my sources are in fact time period newspapers from New Jersey and the New York Times and also Florida. But Mark Gribben really, really helped make the story cohesive in my mind, and so there's obviously going to be a link to his work, but it is definitely worth the read.
I will totally read it.
Yeah. So you know what?
What?
I think that brings us to the weekly worst way to discordantly die. I feel like mine is pretty obvious this week. Hypnosis gone very wrong.
Yeah, I think mine is pretty obvious too, because mine is beheaded like Valentine, because that was long before the guillotine.
Ouch, man. If you didn't get a skilled executioner.
That was before the Iron Age. Oh my god, that was before the Iron Age too. Like, I don't even know how they beheaded somebody back then.
I mean, rocks?
Oh god, yeah. No, for sure. For sure, worst way. Like, I
mean, there were definitely... I am sure that they're... Well, I mean, Bronze Age. So, I think there are knives and swords from... Anyway, whatever. The point is, neither of those would be great. If you have a weekly worst way to die, tell us about it. Even if it is not related to any of this. If you just have one that is really sticking in your head.
Right? Absolutely. Also, do you want to be spooky internet friends?
No.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Let's
yes.
Sigh. Let me cry. You can find us at Bones and Bobbins on all of the social medias. You name it, we're there. We may not have content like on TikTok, but someday we will. Or you can just find us at bonesandbobbins.com.
It's true. And you should not forget, if you would like us to be your non-murderous Valentine, to rate and review this podcast. That is actually a great place for you to tell us how you would especially not like to die this week.
Absolutely. Or even your favorite Valentine.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, anything. Poems to your beloved. I mean, if we get any of those, we may well just read them out on the next episode because that'd be fun. Anyway, if you go rate and review our podcast, it will please the internet gremlins And that's how we will show up in recommendations so the other morbid souls can find us.
Bring forth the morbid souls!
Yes.
And on that note, let us leave you with some advice that you should never, ever forget.
Right.
Lock your doors.
And don't run with scissors.
And consent is important in all activities.
So important. Like, at the top of the
Each
list.
episode of the Bones and Bobbins podcast is written and researched by Haley Pierson-Cox and Natali Hoyce. Our music was composed by Loyalty Freak Music. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bones and Bobbins. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, or check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts so you won't miss a minute of our strange and creepy content.